And I recognize Mr. Cramer for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Park. Mr. Park, I want you to look at tab 5 in the binder, if you would, please.
Thank you, sir.
So this is an email that has become a little bit famous today, I noticed. It's an email from Michelle Snyder to you, dated September 29th, posted at 6:22 p.m. And in this email, which, by the way, ends by her asking you to delete it, she writes, quote, "Just so you know, she decided in January we are going no matter what. Hence the really cruel and uncaring march that has occurred since January when she threatened me with a demotion or forced retirement if I didn't take this on. Do you really think she has enough understanding of the risks to fight for a delay? No and hell no. For just one moment, let's be honest with each other," unquote. Now, Mr. Park, it's, I think, a reasonable inference that the she in the email is Marilyn Tavener, because Ms. Snyder is responding to an email from you to her that same day at 5:54 that says, quote, "MT said that she appreciates the additional info we will generate tonight, but that she and she alone will make the decision to go or not," end quote. Mr. Park, what were these risks that Ms. Snyder referenced in her email that she asked you to delete?
At the time, what I recall was doing was helping CMS basically get additional hardware in place to provide additional server capacity for the federal facilitated marketplace, and that was the issue that we were talking about.
So the risk was there wasn't enough hardware. I mean, in other words, you testified that you thought everything was ready to go, that you were confident. This is September 29th. I mean, the risk was hardware?
So the risks I think that are being referred to in this email is that, based on what we had been talking about, where I'd been asked to be helpful, and the hardware did actually get to where it needed to go in a operation that worked pretty well.
So in the same email chain about 3 hours earlier, she asked you this question. That's, by the way, located on tab 6.
So thank you, sir.
Sure. She asked the question, a series of questions, but one of them is, should we go live on October 1? Now, again, I remind, this is September 29th, so she's asking pretty close, should we be going live on October 1?
Sorry, could you just say that one more time? So who's asking whom?
So it's the same email chain. You asked Ms. Snyder a series of questions, one of which is, should we go? So when you asked her that question, obviously you had some concern, it would seem to me, earlier that day about whether they should even go live.
So again, as I recall, as I'm looking at the email, I was suggesting a set of questions for her to think about as an advisor. And again, this was really, again, focused on the task of getting the hardware in place.
Did you ask the same question of anyone else? I mean, whether it was Henry Chow or maybe somebody in the White House, Marilyn Tavener, or was this just between you and Ms. Snyder? Did you raise this question with other people that might be in a position to do something more about it?
So I think Michelle was actually, as I recall, pretty central to this, and so I was injecting this set of questions as questions I thought that would be good for CMS to think through in the run-up.
So some of these risks that Ms. Snyder was raising, that you think, did you ever share it beyond that? Because clearly there's this confidence, it appears, between you and her. I mean, she references in other parts of it as the rant. She refers to probably or possibly losing her job if she raises these risks with the wrong people. In fact, she did, of course, announce her resignation not too long after all of this. What I'm trying to get at is that as an advisor, was your advice only given to this one person, or were others higher up the chain? I mean, considering that earlier you testified, you did, of course, brief the president himself. Was there other concern raised by other people to these risks that seem to be so central between you and Ms. Snyder?
So with respect to what we're talking about here, which, as I recall, are risks associated with not having enough server capacity, the CMS senior management team, Office of Health Reform at the White House, were following what was happening very closely.
And that gave you all the confidence in the world, that extra service space, that was all that was necessary to
Well, the
mitigate.
specific question that I got asked to be helpful on was getting hardware to the data center for additional server capacity, and that operation did end up being successful, as I recall.
All right. My time has expired, Mr. Chairman.